Raptors center Jontay Porter is at the heart of a major NBA betting scandal, and even though in the video we're going to cover the details behind the scandal, most importantly, we're going to look at the potential figures involved and discuss if it was really worth throwing away a potential future in the NBA and all the contracts that come with it. Let's get into it. Welcome everybody to Amateur Hour Sports. This is the YouTube channel dedicated to providing you with Toronto Raptors news coverage and analysis. So drop a like if you enjoyed this video along the way, and make sure you're subscribed to keep up to date with all the great Raptors content I have coming your way. And because we're very close to the 17,000 sub milestone, and when we get there, we're giving away 2 Raptors jerseys. Get yourself involved with the Amateur Hour Army today. But today we're covering the Jontay Porter NBA player prop betting scandal. And what we're going to do a little bit differently with this video, I'm sure tons of different outlets are covering the details behind the scandal, but if you guys don't know, this is my second job working on YouTube. My main day job is working on sports betting content creation and working in sports betting media. I have a great degree of knowledge in the space, and what we want to do is go through the figures involved with this betting scandal and try to determine if it was actually worthwhile for Jontay Porter to go through with a betting scandal like this, or if he should have just stayed and tried to make some more money playing in the NBA and acquire those future contracts. Because Jontay Porter is playing pretty well. He's on a 2-way contract right now with the Toronto Raptors. They've been dealing with so many injuries. They have been in the midst of a tank. So he's been provided a real opportunity in the NBA for really the very first time. He's had some stints in the G League, but overall from an NBA perspective, he played very little for the Memphis Grizzlies a couple years ago, spent 2 seasons out of the NBA altogether, and now provided a real opportunity here, especially after going through so many injury hardships in his career. He's torn his ACL twice. Like, he has really worked to carve out any sort of opportunity like this, and not only has he carved out this opportunity at the elite level of basketball, he's actually doing pretty well with his minutes here. Not enough to say that he is guaranteed future NBA contracts, but certainly enough for me to say, yeah, I'd like to have a look at this guy in the offseason. I would certainly like to see how he gels with the team, how he looks with the team when they're completely healthy and getting ready for a new season in training camp. Now, no guarantees on whether or not he would make the Raptors roster, but I think there is a solid percentage chance that he's good enough to be the Raptors' third center on the roster next season. If it is Poeltl and Olynyk as your first 2 centers, Jontay Porter has done enough in his minutes this season for me to say, yeah, I'd be comfortable if he was your third choice center. He has developed as a playmaker out of the high post in his time with the Raptors. He has developed as a defender. We know about his capabilities to kind of space the floor as a 3-point shooter. There are certain parts of his game that he needs to fine-tune, but at 24 years old, I think there is a certain degree of potential with the player here. Not somebody that I'm going to say, yeah, he's going to be an NBA starter one day, but somebody who could hold down a spot on an NBA roster. That's the type of player that I see Jontay Porter potentially becoming, which leads to a great degree of financial security with those NBA contracts. Even on his current NBA deal, he's on a 2-way contract with the Raptors, so he can go up and down from the Raptors 905 in the G League to the NBA, but he's been a mainstay with the Raptors ever since all these injuries went down for the Raptors and they started to tank. And on that 2-way contract, he's reportedly making over $400,000 a year. $411,000 a year. Yeah, that's a lot of money. That is a ton of money, and it's a ton of money to potentially throw away for any future considerations for NBA contracts, because yeah, 2-way contract, $411,000, that is a lot of money. But if he were to get a standard NBA deal for next season, he'd be making upwards of $1 million a year. Like, that is a ton of money. So to have all that going for him, and then to possibly get himself involved with a sports betting scandal, that's pretty crazy. Let's just take a look at the way this sports betting scandal has reportedly gone down. So, January 22nd, the Raptors were playing against the Los Angeles Clippers, and Jontay Porter exits the game after only playing 3 minutes due to an eye injury. So, I was watching the game. I thought nothing of it. There was just an eye injury, a freak incident, and he had to exit the game. But according to a certain sports book in North America, a very large sports book at that, the largest player prop winner of the day was Jontay Porter under on 3-pointers. And reportedly, there were a number of accounts trying to get down upwards of $10,000 to $20,000 on these Jontay Porter player props, be it under on points, be it under on rebounds, be it under on assists, and specifically under on 3-pointers made in the game. Now, if you guys don't know how these sort of sports books work, it's not just here is the price of the wager. how much would you like to bet? I mean, it kind of is, but it really isn't. People are trying to get down and bet upwards of $10,000 to $20,000 on these player props, but sportsbooks don't let you bet that much. They hold a certain liability risk when allowing people to bet certain sums of money, so they limit accounts. And it depends on the player, depends on how good of a bettor the person is. They limit you based on these sort of tendencies, but any bettor, especially at a recreational book like the one being described here, you're not going to be able to get down 5 figures likely on these player props. For a Jontay Porter player prop, you're probably looking in the range of $1,000. And if you're looking in the range of $1,000 on a Jontay Porter player prop, well, you're probably going to come away on a winner with about $909 or so on a standard betting line of -110. We're just going to assume sort of for a generalization of what these player prop numbers would be, probably around a -110 betting line, or of a decimal odds 1.91-ish. Yeah, you're not getting down 10,000 on these bets. Now, what you can do in these certain situations is parlay these odds. So you can parlay his points under, assists under, rebound under, 3-point under. Then you're probably getting in the range of 10xing your money. So if you are getting down $1,000, like, yeah, you're getting around upwards of $10,000. I'm not like scoffing at these amounts of money. This is a lot of money, but we're talking about an NBA player here making over $400,000 a year, potentially millions in his NBA or professional basketball career, wherever he decides to go, if it's not the NBA after this season. And judging by the certain circumstances, it probably won't be in the NBA going forward. So one event where something like this goes down is peculiar, but maybe not enough to really raise an investigation within the NBA. But last week, the Toronto Raptors played the Sacramento Kings, and a similar situation unfolded, with players trying to get down tens of thousands of dollars on Jontay Porter player props, and he exits the game after 4 minutes due to an illness. So to do it once and maybe get away with it, like, okay, maybe a large betting group got involved, maybe a syndicate got involved, and look, they cashed in, whatever, but to do it twice, that is certainly going to raise a ton of eyebrows here. And honestly, it does not look good for Jontay Porter in this current situation. Jontay Porter in 2 separate games played less than 5 minutes, and in both of those games, the single largest player prop earner of the day for sports bettors were Jontay Porter unders on 3-pointers. So how does this work from a sports betting perspective? You have all the details that we have for this current situation here. It absolutely does not look good for Jontay Porter. But financially, was it a smart move? Is he going to make more money in doing this than he would playing in the NBA? Well, let's get started here in learning about Jontay Porter in terms of the financial markets available to people online. He is seemingly pretty heavily versed in cryptocurrency. In fact, he has his own Twitter account dedicated to cryptocurrency. Now, since he has joined the Toronto Raptors, he has not posted there as much, but there has been some posts involved on this account and confirmation from Jontay Porter's personal Twitter account that this is actually his crypto account, his crypto Twitter account. I'm not going to pretend to know anything about cryptocurrency. However, he seems to be heavily versed within the space, and there is a certain tendency for people to be involved in cryptocurrency to also want to play their trade in sports betting. In fact, Jontay Porter has posted online previously in regards to NBA sports betting and college basketball betting. However, in this time, it was when he was not on the NBA team. Remember, I said he was away from the NBA for 2 years. In this time, he was posting about betting on basketball. So no problems there whatsoever. In fact, players in the NBA are allowed to bet on sports, just not allowed to bet on the NBA. And I think what's pretty heinous about this situation is that Jontay Porter wasn't betting on himself. This wasn't a Pete Rose situation where he's betting on his own team. These bets are coming against Jontay Porter, and even though it's 3 or 4 minutes, these have negative influences on the outcome for his team, the Toronto Raptors. So Jontay Porter seems pretty heavily versed in these financial markets online. Would not surprise me if he was involved in sports betting. So the reason this is important is because he has a certain understanding about how these sports sites work. I think for a casual viewer here, and most of you watching, you won't really understand potentially that they're going to limit accounts. You can't just bet however much you want at certain sports books. Even the biggest sports books in the world, they're not going to likely let you get down $10,000 on an NBA player prop, let alone an NBA player prop involving Jontay Porter. Like, that's just not going to happen. So what would have to happen in this situation for this to be a worthwhile decision for for Jontay Porter to make. The high risk situation, is it a high reward situation? First of all, there'd have to be a good amount of people involved in this one who can get into different accounts and bet these numbers. So if a certain user, it's illegal to do so, but you can bet into multiple different accounts. You can bet maybe stuff that isn't in your name. You can go around these certain parameters associated with these accounts. But for the regulated industry, you can only have the one account associated to your name. However, you can get accounts in different manners. You can get accounts off of different people. So if you're betting, okay, $1,000 on this Jontay Porter player prop, 1,000 on another player prop, you can go to a different account and bet on these as well. So a number of different people on a number of different accounts on a number of different sports books. It can be as intricate as that, and a lot of people getting involved in betting the unders on Jontay Porter player props. And as well, as I mentioned, there could be the desire to go with same game parlays where you can maybe get to a point where you're 10xing your investment. There's a potential that hundreds of thousands of dollars were made on this event with Jontay Porter. That being said, the amount of people involved in this one, I kind of find it hard to believe they were able to get down a ton of money on these events, because likely as these bets were going in, DraftKings were seeing people were trying to bet $10,000, $20,000. Now, they weren't allowing it. DraftKings were not allowing people to bet that sort of sum of money, but they have all the data available. They're seeing what people are trying to bet before DraftKings comes and says, well, you can't actually bet that much money. They see what the initial wager request was. That just didn't go through. Nonetheless, there's probably a good amount of people involved here. And if there was an understanding on how the space works, which I am inferring at this point that there is from Jontay Porter's perspective, and he has relationships with people who have an understanding about how to get large quantities of money down on events like this, there was probably an event in where Jontay Porter was making a decent sum of money on this. If Jontay Porter was involved, I think we're taking all this in the context that he did do something, but allegedly he's involved, and if he is involved in this whole situation, there's probably a decent quantity of money involved, especially for an average person like myself, an average person like yourself potentially watching this video. But we're not talking about an average person here. We're talking about a person on a current NBA contract. We're talking about a person who could be making millions of dollars with his ability to play basketball, and he's potentially throwing that away in this certain circumstance. So I think that there's a possibility that overall the winnings on this event gets into six figures. More information would really have to come out to see if other sports books report that there were large sums of money going on Jontay Porter unders in these specific games. I find it extraordinarily hard to believe that the amount of money involved in the winnings comes anywhere close to being justifiable for a person in Jontay Porter's position as an NBA player and potentially locking down a rotation spot on a team going forward. This is a very sizable mistake, and I just can't believe how stupid he is if he is involved in this whole situation. Obviously, the investigation is ongoing. We don't know, but having any sort of involvement like this is ludicrous, and I can't believe somebody would be stupid enough to do this to their NBA career. Honestly, people are going to start talking about sports betting and the amount of advertisements that go out in commercials of these NBA games, or the broadcast partnerships where there's certain sports books that are sponsoring the broadcast, all of this being brought into question. And 100%, the spike in people being involved in sports betting and maybe even athletes being involved in sports betting, there's been a spike since the regulation of sports betting in the last few years. You know, for me in Ontario, the last 2 years. 2 years ago, sports betting got regulated in Ontario. And certainly there's going to be a spike with something like this. More access to sports books, easier access to sports books, and more advertisements going out for sports books. But at the end of the day, like, people understand the risks of sports betting. Maybe some people understand it better than others, but you understand the risks of sports betting. If we're being conservative, we're going to guess that at least 98% of sports bettors are losing bettors. Like, at least 98%, probably higher than that, are losing sports bettors. But even with all the understanding behind this, people still do bet on sports. The thing is, if you're an NBA player, look, you can bet on the NFL, you can bet on the MLB, but you cannot bet on the NBA. And my God, if you are, you cannot be taking the unders on yourself. That is crazy. You have a responsibility to yourself when you represent a corporation the size of the National Basketball Association. You take on that responsibility. So whatever factors could be distracting to that, whatever factors surrounding you could draw you to sports betting, you cannot get yourself involved with the sport that you are playing and tarnish the integrity of the game, because I assure you, Adam Silver and the NBA are going to take this extraordinarily seriously. And for a player who is on the fringes of being even on an NBA roster, you just gave 30 teams an excuse not to give you a contract going forward because they don't want to get themselves anywhere close to involved with a scandal in this capacity. When you take on the responsibilities of making $400,000 a year, potentially more in the future, I think you can avoid sports betting and get yourself involved with a situation like this. So as far as the sympathy for Jontay Porter, there is absolutely none on my part. So what do you think with all the information presented? Do you think Jontay Porter was involved? And do you think if he was, it was a financially sound move to take this on rather than pursuing future NBA contracts? Give me your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, because that's it for me for today. Drop a like if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to the channel as well for more traditional Toronto Raptors news coverage and analysis on the way in the future. We're on the road to 17,000 subs. We're very close to getting there, and when we do, 2 Raptors jerseys given away into the community. Probably not Jontay Porter jersey, maybe like a Scotty Barnes jersey or something. Excited for that giveaway to go down. I'll see you again next time for another video.